restore the republic in order to move back to the common law, which is the tribal law. Because the corporation stole it from the republic. We didn't do business with the corporation. They did business by themselves.
Right.
They assumed the jurisdiction by order of the crown. They established the bar association by order of the crown. They even came over here under the what they call the doctrine of discovery, with discovery rights by order of the Pope.
The Pope. It's like any place you discover, like that's why they claim Christopher Columbus, who is questionable whether or not he even existed, discovered America. But yeah, there are a lot of pieces that I've been
the biggest hole in that story, Dr. G. Where did they say Christopher Columbus was going when he bumped into America? Did they say he was going to India?
India. When he going to India? Or someplace?
You know what the problem with that story is? That story had to be written in the 1900s. Because India was Hindustan up until the 1940s or 50s.
Okay.
It wasn't called India.
Well, if truth be told, we weren't even called Indians. So, that I think where a lot of folks might, differ with that, we Indians, is because that appears to be a label also. Because just like Africa, over in Africa, most of the folks, someone from Africa is not going to say I'm African. He may say I'm Ghanaian, I'm Nigerian, I'm whatever country he hails from. But just like us, like I said, we don't know, I guess, specifically what we called ourselves, but we were tribal and clan-like in our I guess how we live. And maybe, just maybe, the $5 Indians, so-called those Indians, would actually try to model themselves after how we lived in that, or maybe they were taught how to do that, but they weren't us. And somebody mentioned about the treaties. The treaties, it seems like that any treaties that were really signed were not signed by us, between us and them, but the $5 Indians, the fake ones, and them. So those aren't even valid.
Ain't no chief nothing name on none of them papers.
Right.
They got all of the names that ain't from over here on them papers, because they was making agreements with other Europeans about the dissemination of our territory under the doctrine of discovery.
Right.
They created something called squatters' rights, which is an extension of something called a salvage right. The squatter right is what they use to put the European peasantry on the land. So they gonna tell us the story narrative in the manner that make us think that everything, all this power, is coming from pale-faced Europeans that was powerless in the whole time before they came over here. How they gonna come over here and assume power? It's not possible. Somebody lying.
They had help.
You have to. Or they following somebody else's order that's making them out to be the fall guy.
Well, yeah, they had help, because I was told that in I was studying something that said at one point, because I've seen pictures where the paleface and the Aboriginals were working side by side in the fields, like whether or not who was what is what, but you see them both working. And then at some point, just like they had that thing about when were white people created. At that point, they were not white people. They were Europeans from wherever they came from, and now they were here as indentures and
white people don't got nothing to do with skin color.
No, I know, but the white
it's a legal, it's a legal terminology for a reason.
Right, the legal terminology, they decided to create that, and then to create a schism, because at one point we were working side by side in the field, almost, if you will, as equals. And then when they said, look, they look like us, let's elevate them, call them
especially
something.
The Irish.
Yeah.
The Irish been over here longer than Columbus.
Well, yeah. I mean, we had something to do with Ireland ourselves, because you look at, what was it, the last, what was it, oh no, I'm talking about, yeah, Ireland, Scotland, running the snakes, so-called snakes, out of St. Patrick, running all the snakes, which were no really snakes there, but that was
That was
us,
the priesthood.
right? So that was
They
code.
came over here.
Right, right, right. The
Yeah.
last
Okay,
Scotland.
so the word Irish is from the word Orisha. Scotta was an Egyptian princess who was given the domain of the territory of Scotland and Ireland. She had a twin sister that was with her named Scotia. Scotia was caramel color with freckles and dark red hair. Scotta, excuse me. Scotta was buttermilk complexion with bright red hair. They call them gingers.
Were they mulatto, or were they, what were they?
They was Irish.
Oh,
They their own bloodline. Scotta and Scotia was the Gemini sisters, the last born of Isis. They the last ones to be established as the daughters of Isis with the Gemini sisters. This is why Gemini is prominent in the recovery. She came, when Scotta came over here, they changed her name to Brigitte. So we see her in the Orisha pantheon as Maman Brigitte. But you see her in the Catholic mythology as Saint Bridget. And then they confuse you as to who she is with the Catholic Church, because their design is to confuse you in order to rob, steal, and kill. And that's the continuation of ancient Babylon. The biggest trick of Rome was to tell us that Rome fell. It just turned into the church and changed its direction of war. Still was war.
right. Wow. Yeah, it's a lot. There's so much that is being uncovered, though, in these days, and I don't want to say last days or whatever times they're, because
They the last days of the enemy rule.
well, okay, well then last days. There's a lot but there are just so many folks that are still in that space of trusting government or believing the lies that they have been, we've been fed, all our lives, so to speak, through school and through, church and all of these other organizations that have been designed to put us in some kind of a program, a trick bag or whatever. So what do you see happening in these next, 3 years and 10 months of the Trump, reign regime? Because we know he was selected. So
It's going to come a point where these audits are going to be finished. They moved the date for the World Fair from the day after Memorial Day to, I think, sometime in 2026, which means that they behind on the work. But the 1 year celebration is still scheduled to happen. They just changed the date that they gonna start it on. That's recent.
The 1 year celebration
they call it the 250-year independence celebration. But what is really independence after 250 years of oppression celebration.
Do you think there's the cancellation or whatever of Black History Month was an affront, or
he should have canceled that bullshit?
Well, I didn't have a problem with him. I mean, with it myself personally,
I don't need no. That's all a strategic political move, because you got to look at some of the moves that he making. He don't even like. You could tell by his facial expression. He hard to read. That's why he Agent Orange. But you could tell when he don't like something because of how he try to brush it off on the comment. He don't really want to discuss the stuff that he don't agree with. That he doing. He doing it. He don't agree with it, but he's still doing it. I don't care. Get the job done, sucker. Tear down. Drag them out. Bring all these dirty players out in the open. Let us see all of them.
You're right.
Everybody in the Senate and Congress, they getting audited too. We want to know how a person with a $265,000 a year salary that started off in the ghetto is worth $2 billion. You don't make enough money to be worth $2 billion. How you worth $2 billion? Ain't no significant investments. Where you get all this money? No, all of the politicians have a standard of living that far exceeds their income bracket. That means they getting some money under the table somewhere.
They have
it's gonna come out. It's gonna come out.
Yeah.
I heard a senator talking to another senator one day, and he was telling them, he said, if you ain't corrupt when you get to Washington, just stick around a couple years. You can't get shit done.
I have a friend that's a friend that's there, and just became from let's see, what are they now? Senator. And I was shocked because I thought sure after she got there the first year as Congress that she was such a wonderful person that it was going to be so dirty in that swamp that she wouldn't run again. She ran again for a second term and won, and then she just became the senator replacing Carper. And I was like, ugh, they got her.
You can't swim in the swamp and don't get swamp water on you.
I know that.
But she could be being used by the good side too.
I hope.
Because remember, they put that bill back in November up for the continuity of government in case of over 100 senators and congressmen. And then they turned around and the Brunson case got over 300 and some senators and congressmen that don't have oath for office.
What's the Brunson case?
Brunson case is the challenge to those people after January 6th that was senators and stuff. They started pulling people's oath of office and seeing who had them on record and who didn't. And the ones who don't have an oath of office on record, the Brunson case saying that that's treasonous and they should be arrested and that they should be stepped down from their positions. But they can't have an oath of office because they central casting. They're not actually there to perform the part, and they're not actually the person they telling you they are. They're just using skin mask, deep fake, and Hollywood effect in this political satire. It's a cover story. The Brunson case is the plug. Whenever they want to pull the plug on the scam and let everybody in on it, they rule on the Brunson case. Right? They just announced, they dropped on one of the channels, somebody sent me a tribunal timeline. Who was arrested and when they was arrested. And all that stuff old, but they got to put it off as new to justify the Biden-Harris farce of a 4-year rule. That was just there to buy time for the level of work that needed to be done. It wasn't going to be enough time in 2 Trump terms. So you put a Frost term in the middle and you let him run his second term, and then he come in, and now he come in like that girl with a Hannah Montana with a wrecking ball. Yeah, he's swinging that wrecking ball now. Now all of the dirt done. The sleeves was rolled up on January the 6th, when the Republic flag was placed behind the Admiralty flag seizing the battleship. But we don't know what we're looking at. We just think we're watching some kind of theater perform. They all accusing Donald Trump of trying to start violence on January 6th, but you got them on video discussing how to instigate the crowd to violence. Pelosi and them, how to agitate them. But they accusing Trump.
Right.
We got the video of the police inviting people in, but they said they stormed the building. And we supposed to believe that though. That's the audacity right there. That's some audacious stuff. They showing you the video of the police leading the people in. Nobody that's belligerent or violent. They all laughing and having a good time and interacting with the police. All of a sudden, they stormed the building. And people fell for it. And people end up getting locked up on some BS because the public spectacle had to be maintained because the people fell for it. Now we finna inoculate them. Since they didn't catch the cold, we gonna give them the cold. If they dumb enough to take this, I got some swampland. We gonna sell the whole world in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
It's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. But we have to. I think we have to do a better job. When I say we, I'm talking about us. And like you said, I agree that nobody said that everybody has to get along or like. I don't know what you said, like or get along, whatever you said.
We don't have to get. We don't know if two people don't get along. Just don't go where the other one at.
True. Right.
Don't go looking for the people you don't get along with because you're going to get your ass whooped.
It's true. But I'm saying, but we need to work on if each one of us worked on ourselves, and did the inner work that everyone eventually should do, I feel we come probably to more of a conclusion of unity just because of the self work of the going in and doing, as they say,
that's a key and critical aspect, because there might be some people over here that's mostly African that believe they native because they never done self work. We don't mind African people being over here. We just don't want them to think that we're not taking back what's ours. And then if they can go over there and help take Africa back because it's going down.
Well, yeah, they're inviting, folks to come to, I believe, Ghana and so forth, and be able to get citizenship.
Ghana changed their mind.
You said change their mind about where they come from.
I'm serious.
But I know, but I'm just saying the inner work, when you do, your self work, that makes a major difference. You don't have time to fool with other people's business and to, try to impose your will on others, because you got to work out some, the ish that's in you, the programming that's in you,
the art and science are staying in your own lane.
Your own lane, the trauma and so forth that we have suffered with through the life. People don't see this. A lot of folks don't see that, know that they've been traumatized. Because when I have a dear friend, I'm not going to name her name. She knows who I'm talking about. And she hears that. And she says, I had to get, 65 years old before I realized, that I've been lied to all my life. She's like, 65 wasted years of being lied, and every time I talk to her, she's maybe 66, however many years, she tells me all the time, and I'm like, sis is traumatized. Talented is, AF, but traumatized to the fact that all of as the truth is being revealed, what she's been denied. And how many others, even with me, when I had my awakening, my spontaneous awakening in 2010, at the end of 2010, it was it was traumatizing to an extent, but I didn't stay there. You know what I mean? Some folks will wallow in their trauma. I started, surrounded myself with folks that would help me, to really understand what had happened, and to know that maybe I could be a part of making that change and helping other folks come out of the trauma. So that was my difference. I'm not saying that I'm clear of everything, but I'm saying I'm not stuck where I was when I first woke up. I'm not still laying in the bed of my, and being of despair of how they lied to me. So they lied. Now what am I going to do to change it? How can I help
Well,
other people?
you got to go through the stages of grief and the detox of realizing that your whole life that you've been fed a bunch of BS.
Right.
The
Right.
most traumatic thing to me, I'm recovered from it now, but nothing was more traumatic to me than finding out that the people behind this stuff, they blacker than me. That hurt my feelings so bad. I had to do the math at least 400 times before I would even accept that I was right. My feelings was, but it caused the trigger effect. As I recovered from that realization and verification process, it made me see beyond the blood in my eye. Now I'm staring at the moment of truth like the bull at the last stroke of the bullfight. I could see the matador beyond the cape. I could see the fraud behind the curtain. I could see Geppetto pulling Pinocchio's strings, telling him to tell these lies.
Mm-hmm.
My feelings was hurt, but as I recovered from those hurt feelings, I started to have a different position and perspective of looking at the devil in his face. And everything that they did to us to separate us, I got